Dub Nation, stop everything now, because what just happened behind the scenes for the Warriors isn't just more news. It's a decision that could turn the season upside down. I know how you are. Tired of empty promises, of seeing the team fluctuate, of feeling that with each game we live on the edge between hope and frustration. And that's exactly why you need to stay with me these next few minutes. Because today I'm going to show you what really changed, what this choice reveals about the front office's plan, and how this could be the solution we've been waiting for, be it to adjust the rotation, unlock the attack, or finally protect the defense. So, take a breath, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do you trust this decision, or do you think it could cost you dearly? Before I tell you what the decision was and why it changes everything, do this quickly. Subscribe to the channel now, because if you miss the next updates, you will be left out of the loop on what is really happening behind the scenes. Leave a like too, because this warns YouTube that this content has to reach the entire Dub Nation. And the more people see it, the more information and more strength we have here. Activate the bell so you don't depend on the algorithm, because this story can gain new chapters at any time, and I'll bring everything in detail. Ready? So stay with me until the end, because when I show you what's behind this and the immediate effect on rotation, you'll understand why no one saw this coming. Have you ever had that feeling that the team is walking a tightrope, living through a season in which any detail can completely change the course? Because this is exactly the kind of moment that I want to talk to you about now, calmly, but with the seriousness that the situation requires. Because behind what we see on television, there is a board being assembled piece by piece, and the decisions the Warriors make in the coming weeks may not be just another move. They could be the kind of choices that shape the next chapter of an entire era. When a franchise like the Golden State Warriors reaches this point, there is no simple decision. While you need to win today, you also need to protect tomorrow. And, on top of that, there is a weight that only champion teams carry, the responsibility of maintaining a standard, of honoring a legacy, of not wasting what remains of the competitive window. And that's where the tension lies. Because to continue competing at a high level, sometimes you need to give up something that seemed untouchable. The season has shown exactly this duality. In some games, the Warriors look like exactly what everyone has learned to fear. Movement, intelligence, reading, experience, moments of brilliance that remind us why this team marked a generation. In others, the team fluctuates, loses consistency, leaves the impression that it is always trying to fit together pieces that do not fit together as naturally as before. And this is what affects the fans the most. You know that the ceiling exists, you see the flashes, but the team is not always able to repeat the level regularly. In this scenario, it is normal to look at veterans and think they still deliver. It's normal to look at young people and feel that old expectation. We just need to click. But NBA basketball doesn't forgive a lot of waiting time. And when the franchise understands that the clock is ticking, the conversation changes. The conversation stops being just developing and becomes resolving. And this is where the matter gets delicate, because the name that has been gaining strength behind the scenes is not just any detail. He's not a late rotation player. It's not a secondary piece. This is someone who, for a long time, was treated as part of the future, as a pillar under construction, as an investment that would make sense precisely to cross the transition between generations. I'm talking about Jonathan Kuminga. And before anyone turns this into a shallow discussion, like, it works, or it doesn't work, I want to ask you something. Follow the entire context with me, because what is happening is not limited to Kuminga is fine or Kuminga is bad. What is at stake is a bigger question, which every champion franchise needs to answer at some point. Do you bet on the growth of a young talent, even if it costs adjustments and patience? Or do you use this talent as currency to try to improve immediately while there is still time to seek another title? This is the kind of crossroads that defines an era. Kuminga arrived in the league with what every manager loves to see: elite physique, explosion, ability to defend multiple positions, potential to impact on both sides of the court. A winger with rare size, strength, and athleticism, and when the Warriors selected him with the 7th pick in the 2021 draft, the idea seemed clear. He would grow around champion veterans, learn from an experienced core, and, with time, become the centerpiece of a new phase. And to be fair, he has already shown on several occasions why this bet was made. There are games where he seems unstoppable attacking the basket. There are sequences in which the energy changes when he is on the court because he can press, run, attack the rim, giving another athletic dimension to the team. The problem, and this is the point that bothers both the fans and the coaching staff, is consistency. When the role changes all the time, when the rotation fluctuates, when confidence doesn't seem to be the same in every game, development becomes a roller coaster, and roller coasters don't suit a team that wants to win now. Last offseason made this even more evident. There was a contractual impasse. On the one hand, the player wants the recognition and security of a relevant extension. On the other, the franchise was considering whether it made sense to tie up money in the long term without being absolutely sure that the fit and regularity would come. The situation dragged on, generated noise, and for a few moments it seemed that there was a real possibility that he wouldn't even start the season in the squad. In the end, the agreement came, a 2-year extension worth a total of $48.5 million. And when that happens, the fan takes a breath. It looks like the soap opera is over. However, in practice, the contract does not always end the story. Sometimes he just puts a date on the calendar, a turning point of sorts, because certain league rules determine when a player can or cannot be traded. And that's when things heat up. What has appeared in recent reports, cited by well-known names in NBA coverage, is that the trade market involving Kuminga tends to gain strength in the coming weeks. NBC Sports Bay Area's Dalton Johnson pointed out on December 9th that movement for him should increase. And the detail that draws attention is that 2 teams in the West, which had already had their eyes on him previously, remain interested: the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns. Do you understand the weight of this? It's not just any team testing the waters timidly. We are talking about 2 franchises that compete on the same side of the conference, that know the level of demand in the West, and that see real value in Kuminga as a part of their own plans. And here comes a decisive factor. Due to rules linked to newly extended players, Kuminga cannot be exchanged immediately. The key date mentioned is January 15th. So, when you hear the market is going to heat up, it doesn't mean that tomorrow it will be wearing a different shirt. It means that, from the moment he becomes eligible, the conversation stops being a hypothesis and becomes a concrete possibility. This creates a very interesting window. There is a period of approximately 5 weeks, with about 16 games in between, in which the Warriors can observe, test, adjust, and also measure the real market value. On the other side, Phoenix and Sacramento can evaluate their own rosters, decide who is available, which combinations make sense, and how far they will go to try to close something. And, in addition to the NBC Sports Bay Area report, another point that matters is when an insider of the caliber of ESPN's Shams Charania adds layers to the story. The highlighted information is that the Warriors should actively discuss trade scenarios as soon as the player is eligible. Notice the difference. It's not just being open to hearing proposals. It is exploring the market proactively to seek improvements. This changes the reading. Because when a franchise goes to market, it's not just out of curiosity. It is because there is an internal assessment taking place, and this assessment concluded that the situation needs a response. If the player were fully consolidated as a non-negotiable piece, the issue would not gain this type of traction. And then we come to an issue that fans often don't see clearly: salary. Kuminga has a strong number, around $22.5 million. For the NBA, this is much more than a value on paper. It's a tool. It's the type of contract that fits into salary matching, allows for larger exchanges, facilitates scenarios with multiple teams, and opens doors to bringing in a more expensive player or several useful rotation pieces. In other words, he is not just an athlete with potential. It is also a strategic asset. And when you combine strategic assets with doubts about fit and consistency, the result is predictable. The name starts to circulate. But the question that interests us, as fans and observers, is different. Why now? Why has this gained urgency right now? The answer depends on what happened on the court. In 17 games, the numbers cited indicate averages of 12.4 points and 6.3 rebounds in 25.6 minutes per game. In absolute terms, it's not bad. But when you put this alongside salary, expectations, and context, you understand why there is a charge. It's not just scoring, it's about mastering the role, giving predictability for the coach, showing that in big games he will be there and will be reliable. Furthermore, he dealt with a period out due to knee tendonitis in November, which hinders rhythm and continuity. However, the point that really triggers the alert is not the injury itself. This is what happened even when he was available. Minutes fluctuating, function varying, and an episode that, for many, says more than any statistic. A DNPCD in an elastic victory in Chicago, a game in which, theoretically, there would be space to give the court, test formations, regain confidence. When a young player, in theory part of the future, doesn't even play a comfortable game, the message is tough. It means that internally, the franchise may have changed the stage of the evaluation. Instead of "let's develop," it becomes "let's decide." Instead of "let's wait," it becomes "let's use it as a bargaining chip to win now." And then, naturally, the Phoenix Suns have a long history on this subject. The idea of Phoenix searching for Kuminga wasn't born yesterday. There has been interest since February of the previous year, when there were conversations that almost put his name in a huge negotiation involving Kevin Durant going to Golden State. Just the fact that a team considers Kuminga as part of a package in conversations that revolve around a player of Durant's size says a lot about how he is viewed as a prospect. Phoenix, in that context described, is competitive, with a 14-10 campaign under the command of new coach Jordan Au, and the reading is that the coaching staff has managed to extract a lot from the squad. This, for a player like Kuminga, is seductive, an environment that believes in his potential, that sees him as a solution and not as a doubt. But the market is not made of desire, it is made by fitting. And the practical question quickly appears, what could Phoenix offer? The type of package mentioned as plausible involves players like Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards, especially to adjust salaries. O'Neal offers that wing profile that shoots and defends, something every team wants in their playoff rotation. Richards brings depth, youth, potential. But there is a clear problem. If that wasn't enough in the summer, why would it be enough now? And here comes another piece that, in theory, could change the equation. Grayson Allen. The point is that, given the performance and value in the system, giving him up may be too big a risk for Phoenix. So, even with real interest, negotiation requires creativity. It requires someone to give in more than they would like. It requires that the needs of both sides meet halfway. And while Phoenix is one setting, Sacramento is another. The Kings have sought to consolidate a competitive project, and Kuminga, as an athletic winger, can mean defensive evolution, versatility, energy, and a high-ceiling alternative to raise the level of the squad. When you have two interested parties, the Warriors gain something essential in the market: leverage. More suitors mean more space to negotiate, ask for more, build a better return. Now, on the Warriors' side, we need to be honest. This type of decision is not simple because it affects emotions. Fans create relationships with young talent. Fans remember the draft. They remember the potential. They remember the game in which he exploded. They remember the moment when it seemed like, now it's going. And giving up on it feels like giving up. But, at the NBA level, sometimes it's not about giving up. It's a priority choice. And the priority today seems to be clear: maximizing the now without destroying tomorrow. That's why the board looks at the rotation, the fit, the standard of play, and asks itself, what is the best version of this squad to compete for another title, while Stephen Curry is still at an elite level? Because that is the question that defines everything. If you believe the window is open, you can't waste time. You need pieces that get on the court and deliver every night, especially in the playoffs when every possession is a sentence. If the coaching staff does not fully trust a player at critical moments, this becomes a now problem, not a one-day problem. And at the same time, there is the side of Kuminga himself. An exchange does not need to be seen as a punishment. In many cases, it is liberation. It's a fresh start in a place where the plan for him is clearer, where the role is more defined, where confidence is less wavering. A team that actively sought it tends to have an idea of use, a vision of how to fit it, and this can help transform glimpses into consistency. Therefore, the next few weeks are set to be the most revealing part of this story, because it's not just what the board will hear from the market. This is what Kuminga will show on the court until January 15th. This is what the coach will signal in the rotations. It's how the fans will react. This is how Phoenix and Sacramento will position themselves. And it is which pieces will appear as a real option return. And here comes an important part for those of you who follow the team. It's not about rooting against the player. On the contrary, when an athlete is on your team, you want him to play well, because that makes the Warriors better and also increases their market value. You want him to shine because this gives you two possible victories. Either he stands firm and resolves the issue at home, or he becomes the best possible currency to bring immediate help. So, what I ask of you is this. Don't look at this as drama. Look at it as a defining moment. A moment when the Warriors need to choose a path with courage. Maintaining and insisting is one way. Changing and adjusting the cast is another. And either one has a cost. If you want my most direct reading, it's this. When the conversation reaches this level, when insiders point to market heating, when the eligibility date becomes a central point, and when the rotation shows signs of distrust, it's because the franchise is preparing to act. It might not even happen. Negotiations die all the time. But the simple fact that it is so well designed is news in itself. Now, I really want to hear you, without an automatic response. If you were the front office, what would you do? Do you hold Kuminga and bet that he becomes a decisive player this season? Or do you trade while the value is still strong and try to bring in players who are better suited to the system with an immediate impact? And most importantly, what return would make you say, okay, it was worth it? A high-level defensive piece? A consistent winger who shoots and scores? Rotation depth for playoffs? Or a bigger movement which changes the level of the cast? Write down what you think, because this is one of those decisions that cannot be explained with numbers alone. It involves identity, urgency, title window, and future vision. And, in the coming weeks, the answer will begin to appear, game by game, rotation by rotation, signal by signal. And that's why I tell you, from now on, each Warriors game stops being just one more and becomes a message. Every rotation, every minute that Kuminga receives or doesn't receive becomes a sign of what the franchise is planning. Because when a championship organization gets to that point, they're not just discussing one player, she is choosing a path. And, whether you like it or not, the decision that is taking place could change the face of the squad, could change the team's real ceiling, and could define what this season will be like when the big games arrive, those in which there is no excuse, only an answer. Now, I want you to imagine the impact of this if the switch happens. Or imagine the impact of this if, suddenly, Kuminga amends a strong sequence and forces the coaching staff to change their stance. In either scenario, what lies ahead is a period of tension, of behind-the-scenes catching fire, of rumors turning into serious talk, and of serious talk turning into movement. And the worst thing that can happen is that you wake up one day, open the news, and discover that the story has turned upside down without you understanding why. So do this. Don't leave here without being prepared for the next chapter, because I will follow every update, every detail, every new information that appears, and I will break it all down with you, the way we like, with context, clearly, and without fuss. In the pinned comment, there is the playlist, Golden State Warriors News Today. Click on it as soon as you finish this video and binge watch, because there's everything you need to understand the full picture, the pieces that are missing, the rumors that make sense, the moves that could happen, and what each sign means for our real chance of fighting at the top. Go to the pinned comment, open the playlist, and find me in the next video, because this story isn't over. It's just beginning.